Seriously, I'm 30 years old. How am I still breaking out like this? Hello everybody and welcome back to Kitsun-Eh. You might see in my hand I actually have a notebook. This one I actually had to lay out some thoughts on it. But yes, basically some news events got me thinking about some stuff. Yeah, I'm talking about Blizzard. I basically had already separated myself from them before this thing happened, so lucky, I guess. What I wanted to do today was talk about something, and it was kind of funny thinking about this, is something that has basically been going on for 13 years of my life, and not a lot of people know this, but I am an MMO player, and not only do I play now, I have played for a long time, and I have played a lot of different ones. So what I wanted to do today was kind of talk about my MMO journey, covering all the different ones I played and give the summary of them and kind of why they are no longer a part of my life, but also maybe what I enjoyed about them. Alright, so starting at the very beginning when I was about 18 years old, I was introduced to a browser game basically called Conquer Online. This was kind of a top-down game, very much like, I think it was spawned off of RuneScape, but a very simple, like, top-down, very Diablo-esque actually, top-down dungeon crawler, yeah, kill and loot type of game. And this was a game based in China, but kind of beautiful in its simplicity at the time. 4 classes, each one kind of did a different thing. If you wanted dual wielding, you were a barbarian, or Trojan it was called, that's right. If you wanted to dual wield, you were a Trojan. If you wanted a shield, you were a warrior. If you wanted magic, you were a Taoist. And if you were an archer. Now, the whole reason that this game could get old in a hurry and eventually got old for everybody who's no longer playing it is that it was basically a farming game. You would just go out into whatever field, kill stuff, steal stuff, until an item called a meteor dropped. Very bright, shiny purple ball, and you would collect these, and meteors were used for everything. Upgrading gear, getting your big final level up. Yeah, and so basically it became like this whole thing of people would just farm for meteors, sell them in the market. This place had gold farming like you wouldn't believe, and also this game was doing microtransactions way before it was cool. They would sell an item called a Dragon Ball. I don't know if this was an error in translation or purposeful, copyright infringement, but yes, they were called Dragon Balls, and like they were worth like 500 meteors, and you could spend money to buy them. So that game was interesting. Probably the funniest part of it was the training ground, where you could basically leave your character hitting a practice dummy, and they would gain experience very, very slowly. So this is back in the days when maybe we weren't all running on unlimited internet, and we probably pissed off a few parents by leaving the game running all night. And also, it was complete hacks because archers were the only one who could hit multiple targets, so they leveled up 4 times faster. From there, I moved on to Guild Wars. This came about by recommendation of my anime club friends in high school. They were all playing it, probably about 3 or 4 friends, but that's really all you need. 3 friends were playing it, and it was kind of a cool game. It was like wildly customizable. You started with one class, and I think around level 10 you got to pick a second one, so everybody was like a weird hybrid class, and I think eventually you even got to pick a third. Now, the reason that Guild Wars did not last long for me is because there was really no sense of an end goal. It was basically level up, and I think it worked on a system like once you hit max level, experience just gave you like an extra skill point. So they bragged that you never stopped leveling, but at the same time there was no point other than leveling. At least that was my experience of it. So my experience with the first Guild Wars did not last all that long, and it was at that point that I was dragged into hell. Yeah, I'm talking about that ex-girlfriend we all keep going back to. World of Warcraft. So my introduction to World of Warcraft was fairly early on in the scope of things. I was brought into it by a friend who was a hardcore raider, and he brought me in about 3 weeks before Wrath of the Lich King launched. So I was, 2 feet in and, started grinding the hell out to try and be, there when the new expansion dropped. And Honestly, those were my fondest memories of Warcraft, were actually like grinding out levels in Wrath of the Lich King content. To this day, I can still hear the music from Grizzly Hills. Oh, those beautiful fiddles. I'm Canadian, right? So that zone's music really reminded me of music from out east, out in the Maritimes. They're very big on like the fiddle folk type of music. It just reminded me a lot of that. And so, yeah, that was a fun time. I did a couple raids. My buddy like hooked me up with like this elite raiding guild, but they got fed up with me really quick because I started work at 6 a.m. at the time, and they didn't start raiding until 1 in the morning. So that did not last long. Now, basically, the story of why I stopped playing that was kind of the story of how it always goes. You're not on the same schedule, or you just don't have people to play with, and that it just pittered out, and I was just wasting too much time doing it for no real purpose. I wasn't even like, socializing with people doing this. So it eventually went by the wayside. And now that is to say, it did not go away forever. In fact, in all of the MMOs that I'm about to mention, it's gonna go, I played this game and went back to WoW. And then played another one and went back to WoW. Because it's that you invested so much time into it, and they gave you enough stuff to like remember, like, oh, remember my flying mounts? Weren't those so much fun? And eventually what the end of, Warcraft in general for me is, I played the new expansion. I played most of the Battle for Azeroth stuff, and even though they made, single player a lot more fun, once you get through the stuff that is not raiding, I found that eventually all you do is farm transmog and, try and collect looks. So that, got old, and I was done with it. From here, I moved on to one that I do remember pretty fondly, and that was a game called Rift. Now, I think Rift is responsible for a lot of games having certain content. Rift, in my memory of things at least, was the first game to have like a living world. You'd be out questing or whatever, and suddenly these rifts in the sky would open, and you'd get like these localized world events where every player could come in and try and seal the rift. And that was a lot of fun. In fact, like, you could make that your whole gaming experience. I dragged one friend into it with me, and that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to rift hunt. And that was fun, but that became very grindy too. And I think with that one, that was a case of, not having a lot of people, and also it felt like leveling took a really long time. Even though the zone stories were fun, it just, it became grindy, not in a fun way, like no reward versus time invested. And also, I think it wasn't really well stocked with endgame at the time. However, what I will say about Rift that I remember to this day is they did such a great job differentiating their factions. I remember you'd had the Guardians, who were your very typical like lawful good type of guys, and their whole story is the Ascendant, which is what you were. The Ascendants on the Guardian side are literally people who are raised from the dead by angels on behalf of the gods to become champions of justice, yada yada yada. Now the other side, the Defiance, had a great Terminator style story basically, where in their future the Guardians had been utterly defeated and the world was on the brink of ruin, and your people, scientists basically, discover a way to artificially make it Ascended and send you, the perfected Ascended, back in time with the plans to go and raise other Ascended. And that was, I just remember that being so out there and so much fun, and I kind of wish I had invested more time as a Defiant. I mostly played a Guardian. I had delusions of being a good guy. I just didn't know who I was yet. But yes, that one eventually just pittered out because of lack of people to play with and grindiness. And the next one I jumped in might surprise some people, but it was actually Star Wars: The Old Republic. This one got me hooked because of great looking cinematics. They did a fantastic job getting you interested in this with promotion and cinematics. And to this day, like, I will always remember it fondly, but it was made by BioWare, and so if you've ever played a Dragon Age or a Mass Effect, you know what you're getting with a BioWare game. You're getting very rich story and very rich characters and decision-based storytelling. And that was huge in this. In fact, you would make these dark side or light side decisions that would slowly affect your physical appearance. If you chose light side, you got like very clear eyes and kind of had a shine about you. And if you chose more dark side, you gained the typical Sith traits, the veininess, the ashy skin, the yellow eyes. It was cool. It like added a huge degree of customization and felt like there were consequences to everything. The other thing that was amazing about this game is I say to this day, this was the best written Star Wars lore I have ever experienced. To this day, I am hoping that the Star Wars movies incorporate Darth Revan in some way. They did that, I would suddenly respect the movies in a whole new way, but they probably won't because they're, you know, Star Wars and they're victims of directors and egotists. But the reason Star Wars The Old Republic suffered a pretty swift death was a complete and utter lack of endgame. I think there was probably 5 dungeons in the entire opening content. It was, yeah, not good for players. People were basically held in place there by loyalties to the franchise. The game left a lot to be desired on actual, you know, playing and content. And kind of sad, and eventually it suffered the death that a lot of them do. They eventually abandoned the subscription model and went free to play with a ton of microtransactions, which very few games, at the time at least, could not make work. And so yeah, I basically got 3/4 of the way through leveling on that one and just was done. And where I'm gonna end this video on, this is gonna have to be a 2-parter because like I said, I've played a lot of these things. I'm gonna end on Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is, again, I was talked into it by friends and mutual friends, said like, oh, we're all gonna be playing this. It said from the get-go it was gonna be free to play and there weren't a ton of aggressive microtransactions, which is great. I'm surprised, like, I don't know how you sustain a game like that without like at least some sort of constant revenue stream, but you know, I gave it a try. It had cool races, it had kind of this interesting storybook style to the main quest line, which was good. The only real thing I can say about Guild Wars is that it had a missing X factor. I felt like there was just like no motivation to want to advance further. I didn't even sample that many characters. I played 2 and that's normally my thing. I usually try every class. And I didn't really do that. I played a Mesmer and a Paladin and that was it. And it just eventually, it pittered out. I think I like did one of those things where I took a break for 2 days and then never came back. Sad. It's a cool looking game, but I think, yeah, I was just missing that little something. So thank you for watching part 1 of my MMO journey. Let me know in the comments what MMOs you played in the day. We'll save like what we're doing now for later. But yeah, tell me, do you remember any of these games? Tell me specifically if you played Conquer Online and remember that gloriousness. Yeah, so tell me if you played any of these games. Do you have any fond memories with them? Let me know in the comments. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time with part 2.